All right, welcome back, everybody. Today we have a special training. I'm super excited to have Elizabeth Green with us. How's it going, Elizabeth?
It is going well. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited.
Yes. Yeah, I'm super excited. Today you're going to get a masterclass on Amazon new product launch PPC strategy. I know a lot of you guys have a ton of questions about, launching new products on Amazon, budgeting, setting up your campaigns. So Elizabeth, she's the perfect person to teach you guys this because she's an expert at Amazon PPC. She's the co-founder at the Jungler Amazon ad agency, and she really loves, like, her passion is to work with founder-led brands looking to scale without sacrificing the bottom line. And interestingly enough, she has six kids. I hope you don't mind me saying this, but she has six kids.
No,
I
that's
don't
fine.
know. Yeah, I don't know how she's able to, juggle a family and running an agency. So super excited to have you here. And before we get started, who is this training for and why is this so important, Elizabeth?
Yeah, so really it's for everyone who is trying to get their products seen and sold on Amazon, specifically new products. Those of you just getting started, I hope to give you a really good roadmap. And those of you who have been selling for a little while and are still a little bit unsure if you're approaching your launches correctly, or want to know like how you're launching in 2024 going into 2025, you'll definitely learn some pointers as well.
Yeah, excellent. All right. So I'm super excited. Let's just go ahead. Let's dive right in. So, how do we get started with this?
Yeah, so really what you want to get started with is the keyword research. And I get questions from sellers all the time like, "Oh, I've had someone do SEO research for my listings or, my maybe they're using an agency or somebody for that and they're like, "Hey, I have a list of keywords. Like, can't I just use those?" And you might have some crossover in what you're doing with SEO and your Amazon PPC, but you really want to make sure that you're doing Amazon PPC specific keyword research. So there will be some overlaps, but if you just take that list and throw it in there, I can guarantee you're probably going to have a lot of wasted ad spend. Not because there was anything wrong with the SEO keyword research, but it was for a very different purpose. And the other thing that a lot of sellers want to know is like, hey, well, like when should I be starting my ads? Do I need to wait till I have a couple reviews? Can I start it right off the bat? The thing with reviews is it's a little bit of a chicken and the egg syndrome where like you have to get sales to get the reviews, but sometimes, to get those sales, you need the conversions, which means you need the reviews. What we found is obviously conversion rates are going to be lower in the beginning, which means a cost is going to be a little bit higher, which is completely fine. But we prefer to start Amazon advertising as soon as products are available in the warehouse. So you will see like when products are being able, like are being checked in and like the ship times is like, oh yeah, you can still technically purchase them, but the ship times are going to show like a week out. You don't really want to launch your advertising at that point because your conversion rates are going to be even lower. But as soon as your products are in the warehouse, available for FBA, have the really good ship times, that's when you would want to start your advertising. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
most time intensive part of this entire process is the keyword research. So what we will always do is we will front load this work. What you need to have to do good keyword research is an understanding of the product and the market, which often can happen even before you really have all of the images or listing copy or everything dialed in. Those things are helpful to understand the product, but as long as we can get like a very thorough understanding beforehand, you can start on this level of the keyword research. And essentially, what we're looking to do in this process is, hey, where do my products fit in the market? Where are shoppers searching for my specific products? And then we want to identify that, understand the competitiveness of each of those terms, and then really just like curate what we're going to go after in our launch strategy. And we'll talk about like how to build the campaigns and everything. Good news is, unlike listing copy where you really need to have it 100% localized and it must be like absolutely dialed in because there's nuances to it. There's absolutely nuances in customer search, but how you go about identifying those things, you can do even if you don't speak the language. So
Mhm.
there's less of a barrier to entry if you're, say, getting into another marketplace, like
Right.
UK, Japan. UK, there is some crossover, but there's a lot of differences as well,
Right.
especially in things like the
So,
baby category.
yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah, no, sorry. No, that's really good. So with keyword research, I mean, there's like, hundreds of ways to do this. Like, do you have any
Yes.
recommended tools or like your favorite places to begin? What would you recommend people watching here today?
Yeah, so a fantastic way to do it is always going to be find some competition, do a reverse ASIN search, and figure out where those products are ranking in the platform. As many nuances and things have, popped up and a million different tools and ways to look at it, that's still a fantastic method. And so you can do that with one of the ones we use often would be Helium 10. Of course, there's Jungle Scout. There's plenty of other tools that allow you to do this sort of methods. And so the thing that we found very important when it comes to looking at products is seeing how well you can find products that are like yours. So you kind of want to find the intersection between products that have good sales because you don't want to be like, okay, so where's the low competition? The guy who's all the way down on page 30, he's the one who's exactly 100% like mine, right? So you do want to have someone like get the sellers that have some level of success on the platform, but then you also want to make sure it's curated for yours. So an example of this would be, say you are selling a product where there's some sellers that are selling like a two pack, and then there's other sellers that are selling like a single product, and you plan on entering the market with a single product. It would make more sense for you to identify the best sellers that have like a single product, or maybe if you can find like a color and style specificity, maybe that makes sense. Say you're entering into the market with a product that is more geared towards, like baby girls, right? And you see a lot of top competitors where they're more geared towards baby boys. You probably want to go after and like look at the competitors that are selling the baby girl products because they're going to end up on more common search terms to what you're trying to enter the market with. So it's really just making sure that that list is, or that list of sellers who you're going to identify the where they're ranking, is pretty specific to what you're trying to enter the market with.
Excellent. And then in the keyword research phase, before the call, we were talking about like some of the points, such as ad budgets. What
Mhm.
would you recommend sellers do like to set their initial ad budgets?
Yeah. So ad budgets are really shaped by how many keywords you're going to go after in the beginning. So the method that we would use, and I advocate for this, and this is what makes your keyword research work in other markets, even if you don't speak the language. So you're going to take the products that you identified, you're going to do a reverse ASIN search on them, and then what I like to do first, is like a pre-step. So a lot of sellers will say, okay, so how many of these sellers are ranking in top 20? I'm going to identify those things. What I like to do is go in and sort by search volume first. So I want to figure out, and then I'm going to start, and this is a manual process, is go down that list of the top search terms and say, okay, so as I go down, search volume's decreasing. I'm working to find the intersection between where there's relevancy to my product and where I still have good search volume. The more specific you get to the product, typically the lower the search volume is. So I want to know like how much search volume is the highest potential in my market. Um, and then the good news is, so if you're doing this in English and you're native, American English speaker, this is going to be pretty easy. You're like, okay, going down. Okay, yeah, that one makes sense. If you come to a search term that you're like, I think this was relevant to my product, but I'm not really sure. This is still our method, and I don't think you can get around with it. So what you want to do is you want to pop open that page, that search page on Amazon, again, in whatever market you're in. So if it's US, Canada, Japan, whatever it may be, and then you want to see what do the products look like on that search page? Because the thing with ranking is it's really influenced in a lot of ways by sales velocity. So if there's products that are ranking really high on a specific keyword and they're super like my product, well, then I can be pretty sure that the products that are like mine are the ones that are getting the most sales. And oftentimes, as you go through this, you will see like, oh, I think this makes sense and it's relevant to my product. And then you'll pop it open. You're like, oh, that key phrase, even though in my mind I thought it made sense, when I validate it, it doesn't. So you're pretty much like going through this, and as you do this, you'll actually get a phenomenal understanding of your shopper search market. So you'll be like, oh, that key phrase, oh, that's like really specific. And I'm noticing that pop up a whole bunch of places. Oh, wait, there's this key phrase that I thought made sense, but it turns out it doesn't really make sense. And again, if you are doing keyword research for another market where you don't speak the language, there's like in browser translate tools. So you can just like translate it into whatever language. Make again, if you're in a foreign market and then you're doing US, you could even translate it that way. And because you're looking at it and you're validating it through looking at the search page, you don't have to 100% understand the language. You can just start to clue yourself into those phrases and get a really good idea of, okay, so where do the products fit in the market? So once you have where the products fit in the market, you have that list, then what you want to do is say, okay, how much of the search market can I afford? So an example would be, say I'm selling a baby blanket, right? The keyword baby blanket is going to be really expensive. To be honest, it's probably not as specific as I think. If you go and look at baby blanket on Amazon, there's like the personalized ones, and there's swaddle blankets, and then there's fluffy blankets. There's actually quite a big diversity, so that's probably not a really good specific search term. But say I wanted to go after it, right? The search volume on that is quite high. I think last I checked, it's in like the 50,000, 100,000. So a lot of clicks are going to happen. And because there's so many competitors there, I'm going to be paying a lot for clicks. So a lot more clicks, a lot more expensive for every single click. It's going to be really expensive to try and go after that term. And if I have a budget that can afford it, maybe that's fine. But where I find most sellers get into trouble is they're hear advice, like, okay, I got to do this keyword research and this is my main keyword. So therefore, this is what I have to do. And I just found like 20 to 100 keywords and I need to go after all of them. What I try and coach sellers through is think about it from just a rational perspective of the more keywords that I have, the more clicks that are going to happen, the more competitive those keywords are, the more I'm going to have to pay per each click. Now, the trade-off is I get a lot more volume, but I have to be able to afford that. So what you want to do is just take a realistic look, one, at what your market is kind of demanding. So what are the costs per clicks look like on my space? Both Helium 10 and Jungle Scout will give you Amazon suggested bids. So this gives you a ballpark. It's not 100% accurate, but this is the best you're going to get before you actually go and run through the ads. So you can say like, okay, this keyword's more competitive. This one's maybe a little bit less, and you can kind of get a gauge there. And then if you are trying to run an ad strategy that requires $1,000 a day budget and you have a $20 a day budget, you're not going to be very happy with that strategy. You're not going to get a lot of ranking out of it. All of the money is immediately going to get sucked up by those keywords that are really, really expensive, and you're probably just going to be spinning your wheels. So I'm a huge advocate for like recognizing the trade-offs of, yeah, I'm probably not going to get the volumes if I don't go after that really major keyword, but I'm also not going to have that additional $400 a day and spend that's going to require to run that. And so it's recognizing what the trade-offs are in terms of like sales potential out of the gate, but then also recognizing that I would much prefer you maximize your budget on like 3 or 5 keywords than try and spread a minimal budget over like 100 keywords and honestly have very little to show for it at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. Like what you said earlier, the intersection of relevancy and search volume, right? So you want to pick the 3 to 5 keywords that have, that
Hmm.
intersection, right? Like that. Would you recommend like that's how you choose the 3 to 5 to start out?
Yes. Yeah. So the more specific you can get. And it also is dependent on like what your available search market is. So the thing with
Mm,
Amazon advertising is in some categories it's very difficult because you can't generate demand. You're simply harnessing
yep,
it.
yep.
So what you're looking to do is like, hey, where is the demand? Where can I put through what keywords, through what search pages can I harness it? And in some, categories, you're gonna have a lot to choose from, which in some
Mhm.
ways can be overwhelming. But there'll be other categories where like, you know what? I can pretty much only find like 3 to 5 of these that really have any volume that are really specific to my product.
Yeah,
And so in that case, I'm gonna just maybe focus there.
excellent. All right. Let's move on to, I believe you said the next step was campaign setup for launch.
Yep. So this is another thing. Everyone's like, all right, I got my keyword list. Like, how the heck do I set up my campaigns? What should I be focused on? And so I would recommend starting out building you want a single campaign, you want a single ad group, and then I recommend in the beginning, you can either do dynamic down only bidding strategy or you can put a fixed budget or fixed bids. Fixed bids will typically get you more impressions, which is the most important on product launches. Dynamic down only can be maybe a little bit more economical. It's very close between the two, but we typically do fixed bidding because our goal is just to maximize impressions and growth. And the other thing that I will tell you is that these days it takes a little bit longer for campaigns to get traction for whatever reason. It used to be that as long as the keywords were very specific, you could set them up, put high bids, and like almost immediately out of the gate, you would just get a lot of spend. What we found is that you will start to gain impressions, but it's a little bit harder to like really get things moving. And so the way to really get things moving in the beginning is by setting more aggressive bids. And when I say more aggressive is relative to whatever the suggested bids are for that keyword. Now, if you were trying to be a little bit more budget sensitive, you can always set like on the lower end of the suggested bid scale. And then as you maybe are trying to gain impressions, you're noticing that you're not getting impressions, you can always increase. Just notice that that method, while it's a little bit more cost effective, will take a lot more time to get traction. And oftentimes what happens, you set a little bit, you increase, you're like, oh my gosh, this isn't working. And then you end up at a really high bid anyways. So if you're able to do it, we would typically recommend that. And also the one thing that's been really cool, there's a beta in Amazon's console right now that will actually, if you input the keywords and you have like the bids that you set, it will actually give you sort of like forecasted impressions. So it will give you an idea of like, hey, how many impressions can I maybe expect on these terms, which again, name of the game in the beginning for a launch, you're going after impressions, and those impressions should lead to sales. So those are kind of our two North Stars. We'll deal with, profitability and all those things later, but we're looking to is get initial orders, get initial traction out of the gate, and then really kind of accelerate that ranking.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And going back to what you said about setting aggressive bids relative to suggested bids, like, excuse me, how what aggressive would you be? Like let's say if it's suggested bid is like, I don't know, like 90 cents to a dollar, like what would you set it?
Yeah, so aggressive would be at the top end of the suggested bid. Now, I do hear from sellers all the time. You're like, I set it to the suggested bid and I'm still not getting impressions. To be honest, that's not uncommon. And the biggest thing is like I'm not getting impressions, try and increase the bids. You might still not get impressions, try and increase the bids. Like I said, these days it takes a little bit more push to really get things started. So if you see, even if you set them like say at the suggested bids and you're still not seeing any traction, then you can try and increase them. And then as far as campaign budgets, again, it depends on your budget. You can always start out with like say $20 a day, $50 a day, um, on that one launch campaign. And then as the budgets run out or as you see that, you could always increase it.
Got it. Got it. How about auto campaigns versus manual campaigns? Like when and how should people use those?
Yeah, so auto campaigns are crazy powerful. In the beginning, old school strategy, which still works, it just takes a lot more time and a lot more potential for ad waste, was like to set up an auto campaign, run that, see what worked in the auto campaign, and then move that over into a manual campaign. Not a bad strat, but again, it takes a little bit of time. Sometimes the algorithm doesn't always get it right in the beginning. There's some funkiness in the start. Whereas if you use, I would say like more of a sniper approach with an exact match, like intense keyword research, then you're like, all right, this is exactly where I fit in the market. Let me hammer here. And I know at least I'm showing up where I should be. Then if I don't convert, maybe I could figure out product market fit. So auto campaigns, we tend to start those after the product is has some indexation, so there's some understanding of the algorithm of like what the product actually is. Amazon's algorithm is quite good about figuring this out. You should have done a really good job with your listings and backend keywords and all of that, so it can really understand the product. Though once you have that, then we find that autos perform a lot better because again, Amazon's algorithm is saying where does this product fit in the market and let me go out and try and find things. We will always start autos on the lower end, so we don't tend to be very aggressive with the autos. Although one hack is if you've done intense keyword research and you can't get any traction and you're like jacking up bids, nothing's happening, you're trying to figure it out. Sometimes using that auto, because again, the auto is Amazon's algorithm going, I think this is where you fit in the market. Let me like show you up here. If you're struggling to gain any impressions and traction, sometimes you can leverage like higher bids on autos to say like, okay, I obviously haven't figured out where Amazon wants to put me because they're not getting me any impressions. Let me kind of give Amazon the green light to like spend here and just see where they're going to show me up. Sometimes that can jumpstart things, but that wouldn't be my first step.
Interesting, interesting. All right, excellent. I know we only have a couple minutes left, so what should sellers do after that?
Yeah, so once you have up those initial campaigns, what you want to do is check them daily. A lot of times sellers will hear what is not untrue of like, hey, you need to gain data, right? So they'll set it up and they'll be like, oh, I'll check in a week because I need to gain, I need time to gain the data. That is true, but you want to be checking it weekly because again, the thing that we're pushing towards is I need to gain impressions. So the first question is, am I gaining impressions? If no, increase bits. Or if I'm limiting my impressions because of my budget's running out and I can afford more budget, then increase budgets. And then the other thing would be, okay, so I'm getting impressions and I'm getting clicks. Am I getting sales? And then again, because the name of the game is to push our sales velocity to help us with market share. So then if there's a place where I'm getting sales, well, then I'm probably also increasing those. And you can imagine if you put something up and then you waited a week and then you went back in, you're like, oh, there's no impressions. You just like lost an entire week. Whereas if you go and like check it every single day, then you could say, oh, I'm not getting impressions. Okay, so maybe I need to make some tweaks. Oh, I'm not getting impressions. Oh, maybe I need to make some tweaks. Oh, I'm still not okay. Maybe let me try the auto thing, right? So you're reacting much quicker, and so that actually allows you to get the data feedback a lot quicker. Um, and then from there, we find that traction. Hopefully, you can start to gain some in the first week. By week two, you might have an idea. Ideally, something pops off, and you're like, oh, okay, great. This works. And then from there, when you figure out what worked, which working for us would be like sales velocity or where am I getting sales? And you say, okay, how do I capitalize on that? So an example would be like, okay, so maybe my main keyword, I'm not getting sales, but like, oh, there's this keyword that I got sales on. Okay, so it's oh, that's interesting. That's like a girl related keyword. Okay, is there anything else that I'm seeing that I can, in that market? Or, oh, my auto campaign is converting really well on product pages. Oh, okay. Fantastic. It's on this one, competitor product. Okay, can I find more competitors like this that I can test? And so that's really what it means. Oftentimes when you hear like, oh, make database decisions or like, you're gonna grow off the data, it seems like it's this ambiguous, like, how does one even do that? That's what it is. It's going, okay, so what is working? What is meeting my targets? And then what else around that or like that can I find to try and do more of the thing that I already know is working, which means your roadmap is going to look different than somebody else's roadmap because you're basing it off of your data, not some random checklist somewhere that someone's like, all right, you got to have these 5 things, which is helpful in the beginning if you don't know. But if you know how to, like, oh, this is what's getting sales, product targeting, fantastic. Let's do more of that. Oh, this is getting sales, this specific keyword. Great. Let's do more of that. And just kind of work your way up from there.
Excellent. All right. So you're saying the daily checks, kind of like a shorter feedback loop. What else? What else should people be doing during the launch?
Yeah, so it's really that checking, and then as soon as you notice something that you can capitalize on, capitalizing on it like immediately. Because again, time is of the essence here. Um, And then I think the thing that most common pitfalls is not maybe biting off more you can chew in terms of the needed ad budget. So we already kind of tackled that. Again, re neglecting to review the data at all, saying like, got to check it. And again, just moving too slow on things. But as long as you're keeping up, and then again, kind of knowing when to pivot. So how I was saying like, oh, if you're struggling to gain impressions, you can leverage autos, or if you're noting one specific keyword type working, like you can do that, or again, just kind of knowing when something's working and then you have the additional budget to put towards your ads, then building off of the what's working.
Excellent. All right. Thank you so much, Elizabeth. I know that you got a hard stop coming up right now. What's the best way for people to connect with you if they want to learn more?
Definitely. So if anyone is like, hey, I feel like I should get more out of my ads, I don't really know. Like you said, build off of data. How do I do that? What do I do that in my account? So we offer free audits. So I could go through your account, deep dive into it, be like, hey, this specific product, here's where you're falling short. Here's some specifics. Here's how to build off of that. Would love to offer that to anyone interested. And then on social channels, I probably put out the most information on LinkedIn. So definitely feel free to follow me there.
Excellent. Where do people get the free audit?
The website. So the best place, jungler.com, jungler.com.
Perfect. We'll link that up below the video. And also, Elizabeth also prepared a launch budget forecast tool. Can you tell us more about that?
Yes, a lot of sellers are like, okay, so you told me like pick keywords that I can afford and how do I do that? And so we had created a forecast for launch, which basically allows you, it uses Helium 10 data. You can plug in your keywords and then it will basically tell you if you want this many orders on this keyword, this is how much that's going to cost. And then you can sort of pick and choose what's going to make sense for your budget.
Perfect. All right. We'll link that up below the video as well. All right. Thank you so much, Elizabeth. This is super valuable. I learned a lot. I'm sure our audience did too. Make sure you grab those bonuses and the free audit. And good luck to you guys at the launch. We will see everybody at the next session. Bye, everyone.
Thanks.